Katana versus Longsword, two of the most revered swords in all of history. That's right, we're going back to weebs versus neckbeards on this one. Today, we're gonna find out once and for all, which is better. We'll pit these two legendary swords against each other in full contact sparring. We'll test their cutting abilities and analyze their craftsmanship and fighting style to see which is superior. I made a previous video comparing entry-level versions of these swords, but this time, we're gonna dive even deeper. And to more accurately represent what these swords are capable of, I have super high-end versions of each. I have here a custom-made Z-Sey katana with a beautiful sashikomi polished and differentially hardened sanmai blade.
Oh, fuck.
Oh yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
And to compare, I have this Angus trim oakshot type 16A longsword with custom-made scabbard, both priced at around $2,000. These are two of the best examples of each sword from top brands in their field. I'm talking epic purple drops only, baby. For context, we'll be comparing these two swords in an unarmored 1v1 duel, Highlander style. I'm talking trench coats and a parking garage type shit. I got thousands of comments on my last video where people were saying the longsword wins because the katana isn't effective against plate armor, which is true, but the same also applies to longswords. Let's be clear on something. If you're wearing full plate armor, that means
you're an idiot.
Oh, fuck.
Sorry.
If you're wearing full plate armor, that means you're going into a pitched battlefield with cavalry and archers, and in that situation, you're most likely going to be using a spear or a polearm, and your sword's just going to be a backup weapon. So let's not hide behind armor, and let's let the swords speak for themselves. To get to the bottom of all this, I visited my local HEMA school, SwordplayLA, to spar against their top longsword instructor.
Hey everyone, my name is Taylor White. I have been studying HEMA for about 13 years now, specializing in Italian longsword, and I'm excited.
So today we're going to get down to the bottom of what is better, katana versus longsword. What are your thoughts?
I have a lot of respect for a lot of the Japanese martial arts and kenjutsu, but honestly, after sparring with the longsword so long, I cannot just imagine fighting without that nifty little crossguard, and the ability to use both edges is just, both of those features I use all the time.
There's a lot of arguments online and a lot of people who are very vocal that a katana user would never stand a chance against someone with a longsword, but everyone I talk to who actually has experience and skill generally have a lot of respect for both.
Absolutely.
And I think it's very telling. So the longsword's most obvious advantage is its reach. The extra length allows its user to strike while staying out of kill range of the katana. The longsword can easily thrust while staying at a safe range, forcing the katana user to have to close the gap, which is extremely dangerous. That, coupled with the longsword's fighting style where every strike doubles as a defensive stance, is what makes the longsword so formidable. The crossguard also provides far more reliable hand protection than the katana tsuba. The double-edged blade of the longsword also comes in clutch. Being able to perform false edge cuts lets the longsword switch up its attacks, making it unpredictable. This clip, where we both thrust at each other, is a perfect example of the longsword's extra length, double edge, and crossguard at work. We both miss our thrust, but because of the extra length of the longsword and the double edge, he's able to land a false edge cut on my head while raising his guard up and preventing me from landing my attack. The longsword's spring steel also has its advantages. Because the blade has so much flex, certain strikes, even when blocked, can still hit the target when using the flat of the blade. The flex also allows for unpredictable thrusts, as shown here. The katana also has its advantages. With its stiffer, curved blade, the katana can apply far more pressure in a push or a bind to knock the longsword blade out of the way. These sparring versions are made of the same steel for safety reasons, but you can still see the longsword flexing a lot more than the katana. A real katana blade is twice as stiff as this one, which would allow for even more force to be applied. The shorter curved blade also allows for more rapid follow-up cuts, especially in close range. The longsword obviously has the advantage of range, but once the katana user closes the gap, the extra length of the longsword actually becomes a significant disadvantage. To redirect a blade that length up close requires far more effort and time than the shorter, more nimble katana. But that's not to say the longsword isn't capable up close. Because of the double-edged blade, he's able to expertly bring the false edge down on my head. So the longsword isn't out of options at close range, it's just not as lethal as the katana at these distances. I've also noticed that when it comes to Hima, straight downward strikes on the top of the head are rarely used, and in Kenjutsu they are the most efficient and common strike. These differences in fighting style add a level of unpredictability that's really interesting to see. The longsword truly is a remarkable sword. A blade where every strike is also a defensive maneuver. Taylor's discipline to bring his hilt back to a guard position after each strike. This is what the longsword excels at. Really cool watching Taylor expertly demonstrate these techniques. At one point, I noticed Taylor was doing a lot of feinting and then following up with another strike. So I found that my best chances were to wait for Taylor to strike and then fully commit to a chest or stomach slash while his hands were raised. If the first strike was a feint, I would be able to land a killing blow at a speed that he wouldn't have time to intercept. This need to close the gap is the katana's biggest weakness against the longsword. But once you're in there, the katana has the advantage as long as they can keep the pressure up. Like in this clip, I press the attack and put Taylor on the back foot. But once we bind, I back away because I don't want to get grappled, leading to me losing my advantage. I also keep raising my hands way too high, leaving myself exposed, which is just due to a lack of practice, which is something an experienced swordsman like Taylor is very disciplined about. Speaking of grappling, I've noticed it's a pretty big part of Hima, but it's rarely ever considered in Kenjutsu. I think that's mostly due to the fact that katanas are so short and razor sharp that trying to grapple it out of someone's hands is extremely risky, as you can see in this clip here, where Taylor attempts to tie up my blade and go for a thrust, but inadvertently pulls the cutting edge straight into his stomach. During our session, we had a ton of doubles. This is when both people get hit at the same time. But due to the extra length of the longsword, Taylor tended to land his hit slightly before mine. But with that said, I did notice that a lot of these longsword hits would have just been glancing blows resulting in flesh wounds, while the katana strikes were far more decisive and way more likely to kill on the spot. It's really interesting to watch in slow motion.
Nice.
You can clearly see a difference in applied force between the two swords. Which brings me to an important point. The longsword has the range advantage and high defense, but what the katana lacks in these departments, it makes up for in pure lethality. Sword fights doubles are extremely common, and while these quick longsword hits could definitely end a fight, they are far less likely to kill their opponent outright. On the other hand, the katana strikes are almost guaranteed to kill simply because of how much more force you can put behind the more rigid katana blade. That, coupled with the katana's insanely sharp edge, means that you can slice straight through your target at point-blank range in an instant. Now, that doesn't mean the longsword isn't as deadly, it's more a difference in fighting style. You see, when your strikes also double as a guard, you can only put so much force into an attack. Part of you will always be holding back with defense in mind. This isn't the case in Kenjutsu. Every cut is decisive, meant to kill their opponent in a single strike. Protecting yourself during a cut isn't really a fundamental in Kenjutsu. This difference in fighting style is what makes this comparison so interesting. If you give two HEMA practitioners a katana and longsword, the one with the longer sword will most likely win. But that's because they're both using the same fighting style. Once the katana is utilized properly, the gap between winner and loser closes tremendously.
Nice.
Oh my god. I'm so tired. It's interesting fighting against a longsword with katana because that range advantage is huge. Crossguard too, this thing caught so many of my blows.
That's why I love it.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, I thought that was a blast.
Yeah.
I think what caught me off guard the most was more when we got to that middle range.
Yeah.
At long range, I have the advantage.
For sure.
At close range, we're a lot more even.
Yeah.
And that middle range, though, is where I felt like I have to choose to close in or go out, whereas I was in perfect range for you to come underneath and get a lot of those belly slashes.
Yeah.
That come under and belly slash is not one we do a ton in HEMA.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you're really good at those, and that caught me off guard a lot. I think the length as well as the curve in the blade, at this range, I have options, but at this range is where I would get hit.
I find myself constantly trying to get to that point, and I have to get closer without you stabbing me in the throat. And if I'm able to get there, then I basically just have to fully commit, or else you're gonna grab me or you're gonna back up and hit me. A lot of people will say, oh, longsword has more reach, it wins every time. It's like, it is a clear advantage, but at the same time, that advantage in certain situations is a disadvantage, like you're saying.
Yeah.
Because like, if I'm at this range, you would probably want a shorter sword.
Right.
Taylor's cardio is so much better than mine, it's crazy. I was dying. I'm gonna work on it and I'll come back, we'll do some more
Looking forward to
sparring. But dude, that was so much fun. Thank you so much, that was
Thank
awesome.
you.
It was an honor sparring with you.
Likewise.
We'll have Taylor back on the channel. I'll have Taylor's links down below, check his Instagram. Amazing instructor. Also, huge thanks to SwordplayLA for hosting us and letting us come here and film. So if you live in California, you want to learn HEMA, you want to learn stunt work, you want to learn from a longsword master like Taylor, then come on down. I have links down in the description. Thank you guys. That was sick, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to give a huge shout out to SPES for sending over the sparring jacket and gloves. They're the biggest name in protective HEMA gear for a reason. This new jacket of theirs is looking super sharp. And I want to thank Akado Armoury for sending over the sparring katanas. They make Japanese-style fencing weapons and gear, which is awesome. I'll have links to all the gear I'm using down in the description below. Overall, the two swords were more evenly matched than I expected. Every advantage one sword had over the other also became a disadvantage in certain situations. The extra length of the longsword is great when the enemy is farther away, but the closer they get, the more it becomes a detriment. The more rigid katana blade allows for more power behind your cuts, but also makes it more fragile than the longsword. All right, now let's test out the real versions of these swords and see how they perform. All right, so we're gonna test out these higher end swords and see how they cut, how they perform. I'm really excited because these are both really, really nice. First up, we have the Z-Sey Katana. This thing is sick. It's got a 27-inch folded, differentially hardened Sanmai blade, which is a really cool forging technique where they take a lower hardness steel and they laminate it around a super hard, high carbon steel core and edge. You can clearly see the crucible steel kind of poking out underneath the jacket of the 1045. Really beautiful. It gives a ton of character to the blade.
Okay, now explain everything you just said, but in like a preschool vocabulary.
In simple terms, the core and the edge, hard, but the outside, soft.
Now I get it.
Yeah, now you get it. It's really cool because the edge can stay super hard and you can sharpen it to an insane degree, and it'll keep its sharpness. But it also won't break, because if the whole sword was that hard, you smack it wrong, that thing could snap. So this way, best of both worlds. It's got a custom wrapped suka, some real high quality Samigawa with the Emperor node. The balance on this is also really, really nice. It's a little bit tip heavy, which is kind of what you want with a sword that's this light. As a cutting sword, oof, this thing is a beast. This thing's gonna cut like crazy. Pretty cool, huh?
Pretty cool.
Right? Whatever. This thing's sick. You don't even know. All right, let's do this. All right, I'm gonna do a draw cut. Oof, easy, like butter. This is definitely something you can't really do with a longsword. Oh, look how clean that is. Ooh, pretty lightweight, but because the handle's a little shorter, got some tip weight to it, which is really nice for using the momentum of the cut. Easy, barely have to even. Ooh. Ooh. That is a clean ass cut right there. Oh, this sword is insane. Oh my God. Those horizontal cuts are not super easy to do, especially low on the mat. But that just, whew. Like dicing tomatoes. There's such minimal flex in this blade because it is so stiff, just because of the type of steel it's made of. You can really drive it through so cleanly, making those really, really clean cuts. Requires really very little effort. As long as your edge alignment is decent, you're gonna make it through the target, which is a testament to how lethal this blade would be, especially in close range. Being able to dice up this close, not to mention being able to cut from a draw, extremely, extremely deadly. I love this sword. This thing is sick. It is beautiful too, and it just handles like a dream. Really, really nice. All right, now onto the longsword. We have an Angus trim type 16A, and this thing is very, very cool. You guys hear me say that all the time, but this thing is actually really sick. It's
Very cool.
very cool. The type 16A is, in my opinion, the quintessential perfect longsword. It is right in the middle between a cut and thrust sword. It can really do it all, super versatile. This baby's got a 34-inch 5160 spring steel blade with a nice amount of distal tapering to it. The edge on this is kind of more almond shaped than a katana, which is kind of necessary when you have a softer steel like 5160. This way it'll keep its edge and it won't chip. This thing is a beast though. This is meant for battle. Like this, you could bash into shields and armor all day. This thing is meant to last. So this is a bastard sword.
It doesn't have a dad?
This sword has no dad, no.
Dang.
Yeah, same. Oh, I like it so much, I can relate. This hand and half style or bastard sword was super common back then, because usually you were using a sword with a shield, or it was sheathed and it was a secondary weapon and you had like a spear or something. You didn't want a really long handle kind of getting in your way, but it has the option, a little bit extra grip if you need to two-hand it. It's pretty accurate to what you would actually see in medieval times, like what an actual real longsword would be. This is about as close as it gets, other than like maybe robbing the Met or something. It is very sharp. That is a very sharp longsword. Nice balance. Feels good. Oh, ooh, that feels good. Oh, I like that. You like that?
Yeah, it's sick.
I show you all these cool ass swords and that's all you gotta say?
What do you want? It's sick.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty much the best sword there is.
It's pretty cool. I'm pretty sure I could sway all my enemies with this.
It is stronger and has further reach than any other sword. It's better than any other sword made.
Don't tell my mom.
Don't tell my mom. This thing feels so nice in my hands. Also, the range I have, like I can hit the target from here, while with the katana I had to be about this close. I'm gonna see how little power I have to put behind my cut. Oh, fuck. Remember overestimating how sharp this is. Nice. Gotta put some oomph into it. It is easy to cut with, but there's definitely some rippling going on because the blade is flexing. I'm sure you could see in the footage right before it hits the target and also when it's going through. With the longsword, you really have to swing it pretty fast. With these swords, you're actually meant to grip above the wheel. The wheel is just for doing other techniques. You're not really supposed to grab onto it while you're cutting. So your hands have to be pretty close together. And I find that when my hands are really close together, it's definitely more difficult to get your edge alignment nice and clean. That was nice. Ooh, that feels good. I'm gonna kind of stay further back and try to cut with this, just the tip. Ooh, yeah, okay, that one felt really easy. I do find that it is a little more difficult to get perfect edge alignment with a longsword. A lot of that is just me needing to practice with longswords more. But I do feel the length of the blade, the geometry, and also the grip is contributing to that. Let's see if I can do a one-hand cut. Yeah, you just whip that shit. Nice, it cuts clean. This is a huge step up from the last longsword I used in the previous Katana vs. Longsword video. There's very little resistance, there's very little shock in the handle, and the balance makes it so that it just wants to go. That was a little messy one. Let's clean this top off, shall we? What I call a clean cut. Whew. Okay, that was fun. These are both really, really nice, really fun cutters. I will say in comparison between the two, I do feel more deadly with the Katana. It is just a lot easier to get really deep cuts. It requires way less effort, so much faster.
How do you know it's not just because you're Asian?
I mean, maybe I have a racial bonus. So using katana is like a plus 2.
Your racial passive bonus.
Yeah, I get like a plus 2 to using katanas maybe. I'm saying in general. The katana just is a lot easier to cut with. It requires less effort, less time. The longsword kind of trades its cutting potential for versatility because it is so much better at thrusting than the katana. I think it just kind of goes back to what we found in sparring, is that every advantage that a sword has or weapon has is also a disadvantage in certain situations. So the longsword has the reach, and it's also extremely durable, which is a hallmark of what makes a longsword a longsword. Katana, incredible at cutting, insanely lethal sword, but it is way more fragile, has less range. The longsword is kind of a jack of all trades, but because it's a jack of all trades, it's also a master of none. You know, like a katana is better at cutting, a rapier is better at thrusting, but the longsword, kind of middle ground, does everything nicely. And it's gonna be a really hard call. It's like comparing a multi-tool to a switchblade. Like every tool, each sword has its time and place. The longsword was made for the battlefield, to be durable and rugged with a long-reaching blade, while the katana was shorter because it was meant to be worn on you at all times. A weapon that wouldn't get in the way of daily life, but that you could draw and cut with at an instant. The longsword excels at range and defense, while the katana absolutely dominates in close range, which makes perfect sense. Balance in all things. So let's get down to it. Which is better, the katana or the longsword? In my last video, I said neither because each has their strengths and weaknesses. But I was wrong. The disadvantages of the longsword are still not enough to negate its reach advantage. Controlling the tempo of the fight and forcing your opponent to close the distance is extremely powerful in a duel. Also, historically, longswords were far more durable than katanas. Europeans had access to higher quality iron ore, while katanas required incredibly skilled smiths to turn low purity iron into workable steel. But these days, both are made of modern steels with little to no impurities, so it really doesn't matter.
Also, you're not going to battle.
Also, you're not gonna go to battle.
So it extra really doesn't
So
matter.
like really doesn't matter, like at all. So for these reasons, I'm gonna say the longsword is better in a 1v1 duel, but not by much, especially when you consider that in most sword fights, you're more than likely gonna get hit at the exact same time. Let's put it this way. If you're going up against a longsword, you probably also want a longsword just so you're not at a range disadvantage. And if you're going up against a katana, probably also want a longsword just so you can keep your distance because of how terrifying a katana is at close range. Because even if you land a hit, you're probably also gonna get hit. At least with a longsword, you can hope to stab your opponent before they get within range. So even though I think the longsword is slightly better, I would still choose a katana simply because that's what I'm trained with and I feel more comfortable with it. Because at the end of the day, the one wielding the sword is what really matters. And personally, I would take getting hit with a longsword over a katana any day. Anyone who says one sword would definitively win every time against the other is an absolute fool. This sort of black and white thinking has no place in martial arts. The actual advantages are so minor that the slightest mistake or skill difference could determine the winner. Alright, hope you guys learned something from this video, and if you want to get your grubby little mitts on a real ass sword, then check out Swordist.com. They're an official sponsor for the channel. They have an incredible selection of high quality swords, from katanas to European swords, all at competitive prices. They also have hands down the best custom katana builder online. It's intuitive and easy to use, and they have options for any budget. They're having a huge Black Friday sale right now with up to 40% off, so use my links down in the description or use my code ARMS, that's ARMS, at checkout to let them know I sent you. I get a little kickback for each sale. It's a great way to support the channel. All right, thanks for watching, guys, and remember, be nice to each other in the comments, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. What's up, buddy?